Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Pak Diki Wijaya, for joining us for INSEAD Blockchain and Fintech Club. Pak Diki is the Deputy Secretary General of AFTECH, Indonesia's Fintech Association, and CIO of Investry, and he's here today to share with us on Indonesia's fintech landscape. Thank you very much, Pak Diki, and the floor is all yours.
Okay, thanks, Jen, for the time. So today I'll be presenting about Indonesian fintech industry, and since I'm coming from the association, of course we'll introduce what the AFTECH is all about, the Indonesian Fintech Association. I'll also speak about the growth of fintech in Indonesia. Uh, I'll also share a little bit on our annual member survey, and that will explain as well the opportunities and challenges that fintech players face here in Indonesia and how we see the industry moving forward. A quick background on AFTECH, or as in the Indonesian Fintech Association. Uh, we're officially appointed by the Financial Services Authority, or OJK, it's famously known here, as the Association for Digital Financial Innovation in Indonesia back in 2018. What that means is that we are the umbrella organization in which all fintech companies have to register, and before they can even proceed with their registration to the OJK itself. Our vision is very simple. We are here. We are a group of players, industry players, and our main purpose is to help Indonesia's financial inclusion through digital finance innovation. As you know, Indonesia is very big as a country. We have roughly 13,000 plus islands all spread out. So it's very, financial inclusion is actually very hard to achieve here in Indonesia. All the players here are trying to work together to help the government achieve the target of 75% financial inclusion. And actually, the target has been increased in 2023. The government put the target at 90%. We're still a long way, but I think together we can achieve it. Uh, Next, in terms of the growth of fintech itself, we started the AFTECH itself. We started back in 2016. Actually, the discussion was as early as 2015. In 2016, there were only about 24 of us, and now we've grown. By the end of Q2 this year, it's about 362, and by the end of July, the number has reached 371, and it comprised of many different verticals in there. Yet, even though it's quite a large number, 371, we only represent about 80% of the total licensed fintech companies in Indonesia. So there are still some fintech companies yet to join AFTECH. In terms of the member companies that's member of AFTECH, we cover we cover a very wide array of industries. In the beginning, the 24 to 26 are mostly digital payments, so payment gateways, e-money, e-wallet, as well as lending solutions, in which Investry, where I work at, it's a peer-to-peer lending with the industry that we're in. But from 2016 until now, we've seen a huge growth, not just in size, but also in the variety of offerings. So what started as only as digital payment and lending solutions now has spread to online digital lending, digital capital raising, insurtech, wealth tech, as well as market provisioning. So previously, let's say for digital capital raising, the first industry to be launched was peer-to-peer lending. But now we're seeing new players where their main purpose is to help you with funding through equity crowdfunding. There's also blockchain-based financial funding raising, as well as project financing. Even in the digital lending side, what started as probably just individual loans now has grown, and we've seen new players that covers even like property investment management. And over on of course, naturally, once people start getting accustomed to the digital way of doing all these financial transactions, they're more comfortable and they're more willing to try new things, such as wealth tech, financial planner, funding agent, etc. in terms of the models, it's still peer-to-peer lending. Now is probably the largest kind of AFTECH members. 42% comes from peer-to-peer lending. It used to be payment that was the largest, and now it's only the third largest segment, where digital finance innovation is actually increasing, moving fast. Digital finance innovation here covers a lot of the new players, such as alternative credit scoring, aggregators, companies like that. Um, in terms of our membership, we have three different levels, three different categories. One is which is majority of the innovative companies. We also work together with financial services companies such as banks as well as non-banks. Here in Indonesia, we have multi-finance, and which is not bank, but it's covered under the financial institutions. And we also have technology partners. If you can see, some of the technology partners is companies such as Amazon, AWS, Google, and Telkom is also Telkom is actually the largest telecommunication company in Indonesia. That's also one of our members. In terms of banks, we have Bank BRI, which is the number one in terms of asset-based size, the largest bank in Indonesia. We uh, we also have a lot of multinational banks as a member, which is HSBC, UOB, QNB, even Deutsche Bank. Okay, here's what I like to say is the kind of the prerequisite. Every association have this kind of wall of logos. So it's as you can see, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of companies. It's not all of them. I think it represents the aggregator, the EKYC, the financing agent, even tax and accounting. These are some of the members. They are now together with the older players from digital payments and lending solutions that comprise the AFTECH memberships. Now, in terms of fintech solution, what have we done as an industry? I think in terms of electronic money, since it is the oldest industry that in AFTECH, the number of transactions itself in July 2020, there was about 360 million. That's a lot of transactions, right? We have about 250 million people, so that's more than one transaction per person. The total amount transacted was about 1 billion in June alone. In terms of funding from peer-to-peer, such as Investry, the industry have disbursed about 7.6 billion US dollars by June 2020. This is, of course, it's about since 2016 to 2020. So about 4 years, $7.6 billion. In terms of the new boys, which is the included in registered in the OJK Digital Innovation Sandbox, they have transacted about 142 million US dollars. And and also the equity crowdfunding, they have disbursed about 552,000. So yeah. Now, back in, I think, end of 2019, early 2020, we actually did a survey of all our members just to see what they think about their own industry, what they think about the association, and what they think about fintech in general. Not just from the day-to-day operation, but also what they think is going to happen to the industry in Indonesia. Now, a lot of people knows that fintech industry is actually one of the hottest industries in Indonesia. A lot of money is being invested there. So everyone is very positive. As you can see here, there's a growing investment in fintech. Plus, because Indonesia, we have a lot of what we call the bonus population, where the millennials is probably the largest chunk of the population. So we have a large number of working age, productive age population. In terms of internet penetration, one of the reasons why fintech is growing is because the millennials they are digital natives. So everyone's already on connected to the internet. They're actually very used to using their smartphones. There's no part where we have to kind of teach people on how to do things because they're digital natives. So they just quickly pick up of what they're supposed to do, and they're very comfortable of doing things online. In fact, they're actually more comfortable of doing things online versus offline. Like offline, like going to the bank, or going to ATM. I think they prefer everything to be done digitally. And because like I said earlier in the beginning, there's a huge number of unbanked. Back when we started AFTECH in 2015, I think the financial inclusion number was about 23%, and I think right now I think it already crossed 50%. So we've already doubled the financial inclusion numbers. So that's, even though we're still a long way from the target, which is 90%. And sorry. And one thing that we find very and this is actually quite a good surprise, is that we find that our regulatory body, which is the Indonesian Financial Service Authority, they're very supportive. So they know that usually regulation is slightly lagging behind the innovation, but they're not trying to stop the innovation. They're just trying to ensure that the innovation is done in such a way that all the players can grow, sustainably, not just growing and then not sustainable and they're closed down. So they want us to kind of execute or implement good corporate governance, good business planning, and let the innovation and drive the business, and not just trying to grow the business by giving money or burning money, things like that. Now, as an industry, when we did the survey, a lot of them actually saw that digital payment is probably, since it is the oldest, it's already kind of peaking. Uh, Mind you, this survey was done pre-COVID, so if you see the curve there, they think that digital payment is probably going to go down, but because of COVID, digital payment it just keeps on going. Right? It's like the Energizer Bunny, just keeps on going. It keeps on growing, and I think the sky's the limit in terms of the digital payment. And online lending, while they think it's nearing maturity, I think there are about 60 million SMEs in Indonesia alone, and there's a huge financing gap. I think online lending will still grow because I mean, if you remember earlier, there are only about less than a million borrowers, and even less of that is SMEs. So we still have a huge gap in terms of those SME that needs funding to grow their business. And you see some of the industry that's considered as a growth industry is probably the equity crowdfunding, and also the other digital innovation, financial innovation clusters. In terms of the users, as I mentioned earlier, Indonesia, we have a huge number of millennials. So if you can see, we consider millennials between the age of 18 to 25, also about 25 to 35. So if you see fintech users, they're predominantly younger. So it's skewing towards younger. There are some that's 20, like let's say 35 to 50. There are still some, because I think at the end of the day, as the slightly older generation, probably they have more money in terms of investing through peer-to-peer lending or even wealth tech. But the others, in terms of across the industries, majority users are predominantly younger. So 18 to 25, it's more than half of it. In terms of location, of course, since we are a lot, I think I can say probably 90% of fintech companies all have their headquarters in Jakarta, which is the capital city. So you see the predominantly living in Jakarta or the greater area, up to 41%, and then followed by Bandung and Surabaya, which is actually the fourth and the second largest city respectively in Indonesia. Good. Now, the length of business in the industry. As I mentioned earlier, AFTECH itself, we started in 2015. So majority of fintech companies is less than 5 years. The boom era is actually, I think, back in 20, late 2017, early 2018. That's when a lot of new fintech companies opening up, especially in peer-to-peer lending. We've seen a kind of a shift where previously a lot of people started fintech in peer-to-peer. Now, a lot of people are starting fintech companies in kind of the supporting industries or other digital innovative digital financial innovation clusters. So they're trying out new things such as, you know, EKYC. They're trying out the aggregator. They're also launching new credit scoring companies. So we're seeing a lot of innovation happening in the fintech industry itself, not just the old tried and true payment lending only or insurtech, but even the other industry that's supporting these three quote unquote major industries. So here comes the fun part. So before the pandemic, of course, since majority of fintech companies are startups, we're always trying to raise funding, right? I think Uber founder always said there's no such thing as not raising. There's no such thing as a bad time to raise. Always be raising. So because again, at the end of the day, startups, I don't think any startups are kind of profitable. So we're all still growing. So we're always trying to raise funds. Uh, so, for instance, half of the respondents said they are trying to raise investments before the COVID-19, but we know with the COVID-19, majority of VCs are actually stopping their funding. We've heard horror stories where term sheets has been sent and then it's canceled at the last minute due to COVID-19. But I think uh, what it has forced is that everyone has to be very creative, and I think I'm not saying it's good for the industry, but it has forced everyone to look within. So it's not just about burn, 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 raise money, burn, raise money, burn. Now everyone has to think about how to grow intelligently, how to grow sustainably. It's no longer about, okay, don't worry, we'll get funding, then we'll use it for marketing, giving cashbacks, giving money to people who joined the platform. It's no longer about that because no one has that much money to burn anymore. So it's about finding the correct way to grow. And also because there is no, funding is kind of drying up. So a lot of the fintech startups, not just fintech startups actually, big companies as well, we have to start bootstrapping in a way back. So it's like going back in time. We are bigger, but now we're also the mindset also bootstrapping on how we can, a dollar spent is it better, brings back close to a dollar. Previously, you spend a dollar, you don't really care whether it's gonna bring back money as long as it brings back users. Now it's like, okay, if I'm gonna spend a dollar, it better bring back users that's gonna bring us revenue. Because if not, then it's a dollar wasted. So in a way, uh, this trying times, these tough times, is it's forcing people to rethink their business model, forcing people to be more creative, and not just go crazy with marketing. Okay? Now, having said that, we think there's still a huge potential in fintech in Indonesia. Why? Because Indonesia itself, we started our large scale social distancing back in March. And because of that, I think a lot of people are kind of reluctant to go out. They move their purchase from offline to online. Even when they go out, they don't pay with cash because they don't want to handle the loose change or things like that. So it has drive digital payments through the roof. I think earlier I mentioned the statistics, the number of transaction itself in July, it was 360 million. I think That's probably lower than April because I know the transaction in April have been higher. The number kind of escaped my mind right now, exactly the total number of transactions. But as you can see, it kind of forces people to change their behavior as well, right? So people who don't have the kind of the digital money, such as the famous one in Indonesia is GoPay or OVO, if they don't have it, most likely, if they didn't have it back in March, most likely they will have one or both by now. Why? Because they need to use, for instance, GoPay to buy food. Uh, they order food delivery, so they have to pay with GoPay. Uh, so in a way, it's weird, but it's kind of like forcing the digital transformation, individual digital transformation, right? There was a meme going around a couple of months back. The meme was like, who's driving the digital transformation in your company? Is it your CEO? Is it your CTO? Or is it this COVID? So yeah, uh, what's happening in the enterprise world is also happening, I think, on the individual level. Because of this situation, we are forced to change. We are now more, we embrace the digital way of doing things, not just, ordering food, but also payment, because you don't feel like going out. And, even for SMEs. So for us, for the on the digital lending side, there are there are two sides of it, right? I mean, due to the current economic climate, of course, there's a huge spike in terms of borrowers trying to lend money, trying to borrow money. But of course, because of that, we are also we're more tight now, because you just can't lend people money and not expect them to pay back. So we're more careful in terms of disbursing loans. And I think some of the SMEs, not only because why they're moving to the digital lending, is partially because even if you previously, if they don't know how to borrow from online digital lending companies, they can still go to banks. But now I don't think anyone wants to go to banks anyway, right? You try to reduce the physical contact, so in a way that's also forcing them to move to the digital side. Um, so it's this COVID-19, in a way, it's transforming not just individual but also SME. And one one pattern that we saw is that there's an increase in terms of the individuals trying out becoming a lender in peer-to-peer lending, or also using digital investment, the wealth tech. Why? Because now they realize they need to start. They need to have kind of a backup plan. So previously, probably they don't want to invest because they are still spending money. They get their salary, they get their paycheck, they go out, they go eat outside, they buy things. Now with the current climate, not only they're not going out, but they also realize that they need to have an investment as a backup plan. So we see new individuals, new people, they're trying out, um, and diversifying, not just from the savings but also trying out online investments. Now, moving forward, as an industry, we see that, as I previously mentioned, the situation, the pandemic, is forcing people to move to the digital, doing a digital transformation on their own. So we see that fintech companies, our industry, were very well positioned in terms of helping national economy recovery. Some of us have done that by, the government have programs to give kind of a low cost funding. So some of the peer-to-peer lending has worked together with banks to speed up kind of the disbursement of the fund itself, because you know uh, disbursing loan is not as easy as people would think, because you really still have to be quite selective, right? In terms of, you need to know who they are, you need to know where they do business, you need to validate kind of their companies. And banks especially why banks are working with us is because banks are used to the offline side of it. Now, who's good at online? Of course, the fintech industries. So we know how to kind of do all these things, all the KYC that they need us to do without actually, having a physical interaction. So that's why banks are working with us. And we're also, because AFTECH, we have a lot of working groups. We've given inputs to the government in terms of the privacy law. And it's privacy law, it's very important now, especially because there are more and more people getting into the fintech industries or using fintech on their day-to-day lives. We're also producing consultative paper on open API standards for the central bank. We know that the banks as well, they're also trying kind of to transform themselves. They have open APIs. Bank Mandiri, which is one of the largest banks in Indonesia, they just launched their open API for select people. BCA also have open API. So these banks are also trying to transform themselves and help uh, either fintech companies or other companies to do their business in digitally easier. Now, having said that, while we see there's a shift towards digital, with that also comes the risk, right? There has been an increase in cybersecurity attacks. We know that Tokopedia, one of the largest, if not the largest e-commerce company in Indonesia, had a leak in terms of their user database. About 90 million user database was leaked online, and I think I read an article last week that the number of attacks actually doubled for everyone. For us, we know uh, we know that there's an increase because my team has been very busy lately. Alerts always come. Uh, the number of alerts that we get is much higher in 2020 than in 2019. Uh, thank God our system is kind of strong enough, but we see that the joke is this: maybe the hackers are also now have to stay home, so they don't have to go to work. Everyone's doing work from home. Probably the hackers now have even more time to attack systems since they don't have to go to the office. So that was the joke. Joking aside, of course, it's not something that we're happy about, but we know it comes with the territory, right? Preparing the cybersecurity on the company level. That's, I think it's given. Every fintech companies are focused on that. But AFTECH as an association, what we do is we work together with the government to ensure that there is a clear kind of regulation on this, because while there is some regulation, we do think that it's still lacking in terms of the punishment or things like that. So we're also working on uh, uh, working together with the government to regulate that, not just from the hacker point of view, but also on the players itself, to ensure that the players have a greater incentive to ensure that the privacy and the security of their data is up to the latest standard. And I think I've touched a lot on the how the consumer behaviors are changing. Everyone's moving digital. They're digital, and they're moving towards they want it now. Everything is instant, right? They no longer want to wait. So uh, in Indonesia, the one of the, I think, if not one of the most favorite, if not the most favorite slash popular food, is our instant noodle. So that kind of shows the mindset of our country. We want things happening very fast, but of course, in financial industry, fast sometimes doesn't equal good. So it's about balancing between delivering things as fast as the customer wants, but while still being cognizant of all the standards, the security that we have to maintain in order to make sure that all the transactions are done correctly and protected. Okay, I think that's it from me, Christine. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think that's a lot of that will keep our members up to speed with what's going on in Indonesia. A little bit curious, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of like pivoting that is happening currently after COVID-19. Can you share a little bit on what kind of pivot is happening?
So now, so a lot of let's say for peer-to-peer lending, right? A lot of them, there are two main market for peer-to-peer lending. One is SME, focus on SME, helping them grow, such as Investry. The other one is on individual loans.
Right.
So with COVID-19, of course, people would say, "Oh, the SME, you don't have to do pivot." There are actually more SMEs that needs funding.
Mm.
Actually, maybe not just pivot, but also in a way we have to figure out, we have to be more hands-on with what our members need. So it's no longer just giving the money or lending the money, but we need to ask, so what is it that you need in terms of business? So we are looking to business solutions, right? Things that can help them improve their operational, especially during these pandemic times.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning earlier that seems like digital payment and lending is the one that is really growing now, also driven by COVID. Any tips on which companies you see are growing currently?
Okay, so in terms of payments, the top two, or I'll say three. It's very easy. It's GoPay, Ovo, as well as Dana. Those three are probably the three largest ones. In terms of peer-to-peer lending, it really depends on how what kind of uh, what kind of play you want to get into. Do you want to go to the individual side, or do you want to go to the SME side? So for the SME side, you have like Investory, where I work. You also have Modalku, which is actually uh, across Southeast Asia. So Modalku is in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, but in Singapore they're known as funding societies. Investor itself, we have presence in Jakarta, Philippines, and Thailand. And you also have CoinWorks. You have Amarta, which is helping uh, small individuals in the villages.
Hmm.
And yeah, so you kind of have a lot of options to choose from. It really depends on how uh, you want to choose your exposure, right? And we also have Tani Hub as well, of course.
Of course. And actually, I'm
Yeah,
curious, right?
let's not
Like,
forget that part.
for foreigners who want to come to Indonesia, when I was in Indonesia, there was really a lot of local context going on. But so my question is, what kind of value now that could be provided by non-Indonesian that wants to come to Indonesia? Is it purely technical value, or is there any other kinds of, you know, when you see foreigners coming into Indonesia, what kind of role are they taking?
Okay, so the easy answer would be the technical side. We do see a lot of companies hiring foreigners for to fill the kind of senior tech roles.
Hmm.
What we hope is that they bring their expertise, their experience of developing to a certain standards, international standards,
Hmm.
back to Indonesia, because while Indonesia have a huge number of fresh grad,
Hmm.
what they lack is probably experience as well as knowing what the international standard is all about. So that kind of bringing in the knowledge of what international companies do, that is very useful, or companies in other countries do, on how they do it. That's very helpful. That's one. We're also seeing, such as not the non-tech side, the business side. Probably it's not specifically because they know Indonesia, but it's more on their mindset, right? I think, uh, especially with foreigners, Europeans, Americans, or even some Indians, how they were educated. It's less on by the book. It's more on teaching the mindset, right?
Hmm.
So that's, I think, for me personally, I see that's the huge difference between education in Indonesia and education outside Indonesia. It's about the big picture. I mean, yes, of course, you need quote unquote people who know how to do things tactically, but you also have to look at big picture. And I think that's what some Indonesians, what we can actually learn from foreigners is that how you look at things from a different angle in such a
That sounds like a BD role kind of thing. Is that the right like sense that I'm
yes,
getting?
yes. So yeah, that is correct. Um, uh, Sometimes people can be too laser focused, right? I mean, in
Yeah.
Indonesian, we know we have this term called kacamata kuda,
Yes.
the horse's glasses.
Yes.
So they're very focused. Oh, I you need to do certain thing in a certain way. But especially because fintech, in a way, it's still a startup, even though it's already 5 years. It's startup mentality, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know that there's banyak jalan menuju Roma. There are many roads to Rome, right? So you know your objective. There are other ways to achieve your objective instead of just so laser focused on how you think you can achieve your objective. So I think that mindset is really, I see it more often in unfortunately either foreigner or foreign educated Indonesians, but for local educated Indonesians, they probably needs to be, their mind needs to be open a little bit and see, look, these are the potentials or the opportunities, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to just follow a single path to achieve what you want. There are actually many paths to achieve that.
I see. That's true. That's right. I totally feel that like the difference in the way people are educated back in Indonesia and
Yes,
outside. It's just difference in methodology. And
yes.
actually then on with the context of now with COVID-19, do you still see like, people coming in, like is the borders open to Indonesia? Can people come and work?
uh, I
Do
think
you see
okay.
clearly?
Okay, regardless of the actual border, whether it's open or
Yes,
not,
yes.
yeah, or whether people actually want to travel or not. Um, at the end of the day, the way I see it is this: quality will always shine, right? So if you have quality that is useful to any companies in the world, it doesn't matter where you apply. So probably the only reason that you might, let's say, a foreigner that has quality that wants to work in Indonesia, probably the only reason that you can't get a job in Indonesia is the price. You know, uh, I think I think it's a misconception. Some companies, they are kind of afraid to hire foreigners because they think, oh, foreigners, expats gonna cost money. Oh, they ask for a lot of money. But
Mhm.
what we find is that a lot of these, so we've had 30 something foreigners working for us. We have some 20 something foreigners as well. So it's not true at all. It's they're not like asking for an arm and a leg. So actually, I'm speaking for Indonesian companies. Uh, they're actually very open to discussion. So if you're a foreigner, you want to work in Indonesia, I think at the end of the day, you have you have to choose. Why are you coming to Indonesia? Is it for the money, or is it for the experience, or is it to to kind of expose yourself to a different market, a global market? So I mean, if you're looking for money, then I can say safely Indonesia is not the right choice right now. I think right now, if oh, I'm gonna go work in another country and I want to make expat money,
Mhm.
I feel that Indonesian companies are probably kind of scaling back in terms of that. But if you're willing to discuss, like, the going rate, I think the opportunities will open. And so that's why I said, the whoever wants to work in Indonesia, you need to get you have to be clear about what you're trying to get out of this. If you're trying to get experience, if you're trying to add uh, um, you know working in a company in a growing probably it's the largest economy in Southeast Asia, then yeah, you can work here definitely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the bluntness and for the sharing, Dicky. Um,
Yes.
let's stop recording for now. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Dicky. William, anything you want to say? Anything you want to add?
It's all right. It's been a very fruitful discussion with Padiki. So thank you for the chance. All good. All good from me.
Thank you very much, Aftek. I will stop the
Thank
recording.
you.